Anton, he's from Stackoverflow. He's going to share some really interesting insights.
Cheers. Okay, so as Charles said before, thanks for Codility for inviting us, and obviously in-house. Asa, stop laughing at me already, please. Always great to have my surname up there again, just so everyone can have a nice little laugh at the start. I'm actually the UK country manager for Stackoverflow. The reason I keep referencing Asa is because he worked with us until quite recently. A great guy, and he's got some really good insights. Definitely pick his brains. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about our developer survey results. Now, even just in the coffee bar before we came in here, quite a few of you said, yeah, we reference that. We download it each year. Our tech talent team always look at it. If you don't, it's a really good, valuable source of information. And I would definitely recommend after this, if you haven't already, download it. But today we're going to look at some specific insights for the UK. So hopefully the information resonates a little bit better than the global report. There is a UK version, but hopefully some of these stats are going to help you put into perspective why you're struggling, why it's difficult at the moment, and we'll go from there. Double click. All right, so just under 6,000 people took part and took this survey in the UK. Globally, we had around 100,000 people. This isn't a short survey. Developers have to spend around half an hour filling this in, so we're really proud of these results. It's a really valuable data set. 100,000 people globally answering any survey is amazing. Stack Overflow has around 50 million users worldwide. They're all specifically developers. They come to our website to code. They ask each other coding-related questions, and I think I mentioned before, some of the coding tests that people send out, Stack Overflow is a massive resource for them. They will go on Stack Overflow, ask the question on Stack, and then someone somewhere in the world will answer that coding-related question for them. Companies, like the likes of some of you in the room today, you advertise your developer roles in front of our community to attract them as they're working. So if you imagine someone's on our website to code, they see that you are hiring, they apply as they're sort of busy at work or they're at home. Broken down into numbers a little bit further, if you're hiring people outside of the UK, there's a really big data set in Europe. As we mentioned there as well, it takes a median of 23 minutes. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I've had a survey put in front of me or a questionnaire, if it's more than 3 minutes, I'm probably not going to bother. This just shows the love for Stack Overflow from the developer community, that 6,000 in the UK were willing to take half an hour out of their day to answer the questions so that we can better support them in the future. So here's what we're going to cover. Like I said, it's highlights of our developer survey. We're not going to go into loads of detail. There's hundreds of questions. If there's something specific that you want answered, feel free to reach out to us or download that survey and have a little look through. But we're going to cover developers are in high demand in today's job market. In this room, probably the most basic statement you'll ever hear. Everyone I've spoke to has got different reasons, even just on our little roundtable session then. We've got someone hiring in Jersey, and a specific type of developer. We've got people that are hiring 150 people next year. We've got people that have grown their team from 50 to 150 and have grown beyond that. The challenges are all varied, but the fundamental differences, the fundamental same thing is that it's difficult to hire developers, and we'll find out a little bit why. Developers tend to be more satisfied with their career than current position. I'll explain what that means later. Most developers aren't actively looking, but are open to new opportunities. And then some key takeaways probably for you guys is focus on technology, culture, and values in the recruitment outreach. And again, sometimes I present this to a variety of people. I think everybody in this room now can probably grasp, especially from Charles's presentation, that it's important to have a little bit of flexibility in your working hours or the option to work remote. Okay, so we have a massive variety of size companies in the room today. Some of you are with a team of 15. Some of you are in a team of, over 1,000 plus. But from our research, we found out that developers tend to work in this sort of bracket here, the 20 to 99 employees. So these companies are the ones that are flourishing, the ones that are thriving at the moment in terms of attracting tech talent. But the older the developer becomes and the more years experience, that increases the size of the company which they work in. That can suggest one of two things. Either all of those companies are growing rapidly with them, or the more experienced developers are actually moving on to bigger companies every year that they progress in their career. Okay, again, pretty obvious, the employment rate is really high. Over 90% of professionals are either employed or at least part-time. There's a few people, I think maybe one person in the UK was retired that answered this survey, which was nice. But basically there's around 4 roles open for every one developer. In certain areas of the UK probably higher, certain areas of Europe probably higher, but 4 open roles for every one developer. So if you're sitting in a current role, you might not necessarily be desperate to look for a new opportunity. The likelihood of you pulling them out of that current employment into your company, it's going to be pretty tough, and you need to really sell yourselves when you're doing that. So this is one of the statements from the first slide, and it's that developers tend to be satisfied at work. Great, but if we break that down a little bit further, they're more satisfied with their career as a whole, so where they've grown, where they've come from, the skills which they've learned in the past X amount of years. They're more satisfied with that than they are their current role that they're working in. And I was at SMR, Silicon Milk Roundabout, a couple of weeks ago. Every developer that came over to our stand was like, yeah, I'm not really looking, but the next move I want to make a move for the right reason. It needs to be something that I'm going to be happy and satisfied with. They can continue coding as they are all day long, but the next move, it needs to be something better. It needs to be something that I care about, and you need to try and position yourselves in front of them as this is a great opportunity for exactly what you need to do. I think Charlie spoke a little bit about we don't want to attract the people from Facebook because you offer a different sort of culture, a different sort of work environment, and that's what you should look for within your own company. Don't go chasing everybody else. Make people happy within your current organization, and that starts with selecting the right people in the first place. Okay, you've got your quotas, and Diana, I know that you said you got 150 people to hire this year, but if you've got people that are ticking towards the 2-year mark, you might be losing 50% of those in the next year, so you might want to add a couple of extra people onto that 150 that you need to hire. What this means is that you should always be, even if you have 2 roles, some of the smaller companies here might have 2 or 3 roles in the next 6 months, you've got to also look ahead to who you're going to lose in that time. Who's at that 2-year threshold? Who 50% of those people are going to leave. So it's about building a pipeline of candidates over the year, regardless of when you're hiring. Even if your CTO says to you, I'm not hiring for the next 6 months. All right, well, am I going to start looking in 6 months, or am I going to get myself in front of them now, start speaking to them now to prepare for those hires later in the year? So you should always be keeping sort of a visible presence within the developer community. This is quite an interesting one. So I threw this one in specifically for the Silicon Milk Roundabout because a lot of the developers that were coming over to our stand were saying, I don't want to be a manager because they don't earn as much as me. I don't think I have the skills. And we spoke quite in depth with a lot of the people that came to our booth and said, well, that's a perception, but that's not necessarily true. And the skills thing, you don't have the skills. These skills can be learned. Anyone can learn the skills to be a manager. It's not something that you're born with. People might say, oh, you're always going to be a manager. But these are skills that you pick up over time. And it's about finding those people within your teams that have the ability to pick up those skills to become a manager. And it's a little bit sad that not many would like to. So a firm no, just under 40%. They don't want to become a manager in the future. Who's going to be leading your teams when the older managers pass off? Pass off? Pass over? Pass out? Die? I don't know. Leave. There we go. All right, so this is a really important one, and it's going to be really crucial for everyone in this room that is going after that sort of active candidate. The candidate that is ready to move now, the candidate that is looking at job boards, the candidate is potentially speaking to recruiters. That's such a small percentage of the developer community. 10% of people are actively looking for work in the UK. So then, if you break that down even further and say, okay, I'm going to post on a specific job board, what's the likelihood that 10% are going to go to that specific job board? Then you've got those jobs mixed in with recruitment companies, fake listings, whatever it is. The likelihood that they're going to see your listing, and I know that Alex, you were saying about M-Plan, the brand that you have out there in the developer community at the moment might not be as good as it needs to be. What's the likelihood they're going to browse past and see your company name and say, yeah, I know them, I know what they do, I'm going to click on that and I'm going to apply? you're basically narrowing that list down every time that you go down the funnel, and you end up with a very small pool of people. So what I'm trying to say to you is there are 65% of developers in the UK that are open to new opportunities, but they don't have the time to maybe go and look. They don't have the time for like a coding test, which takes 2 days. Put things in front of them which are, it's going to resonate well with them. Get in front of them in the places that they hang out, like Stackoverflow, small plug, sorry. Put it in front of them and let them know what you're up to. And then don't reduce the chances of them joining your company by putting loads of extra stages to the recruitment process. A few of you mentioned recently reducing down. Belén, obviously, you're looking at your strategy of how you hire is going to definitely help you hire developers in the future because it's more streamlined, it's also more focused, and it's the same across the business. That's really important. This was a really interesting one, which actually came up on our roundtable discussion a moment ago. And Diana was saying that that when a female is interviewed, that they would much prefer to take a coding test home than be forced to do a whiteboard discussion and a whiteboard breakdown in front of managers that are picking holes in it. So what they decided to do was they give the option: would you like to do the take-home coding test, or would you like to do the whiteboard discussion in front of the management team? Now, that's kind of, it was strange me hearing that, because I've looked at this slide and tried to figure it out so many times. And actually, so women are more likely to report completing a take-home project, less likely to say they had an interview with people in their peers. And I was thinking, is this bias? And I'm still not sure, but it's a really interesting talking point which you can maybe take into your next roundtable discussion. Why is it that they're being asked to take home a coding test? Okay, and it's a really good sort of thinking point, and it shows that we've probably still got a long way to go in terms of how we interview candidates. I think that most people I've spoke to, well, actually not most people, it's quite a big split between allowing remote work and not allowing remote work, or allowing flexible working hours and not. So I know that when the developers used to come into our office and they would work remote most of the time, and they would usually come in when it was, a decent lunch was on, or we had an office party in the evening. They would come and get their free food, and then we wouldn't see them again for 2 weeks. But the biggest challenge to their productivity is a distracting work environment. You can chuck a sales team in, you could chuck 300 salespeople in this room, and they would just get on. The noise would be ridiculous, but they would carry on. If you put developers in this same room, the same quantity, no one's going to get anything done. They can't get into their flow. They can't be as productive as they should be. And the biggest complaint is a distracting work environment. Meetings, the Brits love a meeting. We call meetings for meetings. I always remember our marketing team used to have meetings to discuss what meetings that they were going to have. But in a development team, unless they are placed at a time when isn't going to be disruptive to their work environment or their workflow, then meetings are going to be, too much damage. They're going to be, it's not going to be beneficial to any of the teams. So what I'm trying to say here is that recommend to your development teams that they have meetings as infrequently as possible, and only when necessary. Don't just take the hour because you need the hour. Like if it's finished after half an hour, let them go back to work, but also speak to the dev teams and see when they want their meetings. This is probably more for your CTOs than it is the people in the team here. But it was an interesting one which I took from the SMR. Company culture is important, especially for women. So an office environment and a company culture ranked highest for women in the dev survey, and it ranked second for men in the dev survey, which proves that it is very valuable to both demographics. So we need to have a really good office environment, and we need to have a really good company culture. And again, to reference what Charles said, be true to yourselves. Don't try and portray yourselves to be something different, otherwise that person will join the company. They don't fit in with the culture, they don't fit in with the office environment, and they're looking for something completely different. That person isn't going to hang around for 2 years like the 50%. They'll be there for a couple of weeks, and then you've got to find someone to replace them. But yeah, languages and frameworks, obviously something else which is really important, and definitely keep those two front of mind. Just for the sort of harmony within a team, the psychological safety of a team, and this doesn't matter whether it's developers or whether it's HR teams. There's a really good book I read recently called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which is taken loosely from this. And it's about creating an open work environment where people can challenge each other, and there's not going to be any conflict, and it's going to be positive conflict of anything. But yeah, that's just my little takeaway. It's called the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I'd definitely recommend reading that if you're part of a team, if you're managing a team, whatever that may be. It's a really useful book to read and also take part in, even if you're just one of those team members. Okay, so employer brand is really important. It's going to reduce your cost and time to hire. Again, referencing our conversation earlier on, Alex, if a company doesn't know who you are and you haven't created this good company culture within, it's going to be very difficult for you to hire when you need to. And it's creating your profile and creating your presence. I think, Charles, you mentioned that you do everything possible, events, blogs, whatever it may be, advertising here, advertising there. You need to have a completely rounded approach to this recruitment process. Budgets don't always permit it, but what does it cost for one of your developers to write a blog and push that out on your LinkedIn or your Stack Overflow careers page? It's free. Have that information, attend hackathons, attend meetups, and that's definitely going to help your employer brand over the years. Okay, again, this isn't rocket science, but developers like flexible working hours, even if it is 1 day a week. That's going to increase your chances of hiring that person, tenfold. We were discussing before about consultancies and working at a bank, for example, and the restrictions that they have on flexible working hours. And it's kind of Stack Overflow's job and other companies to educate even those companies. They're the slowest to turn around. They're the biggest corporations to turn around. So it's going to take time. But the faster, more agile companies, some of you of which are in the room, already offering flexible working hours, already offering the ability to work remotely for 1 day a week, 3 days a week, whatever it may be, you're going to attract much better tech talent. And if you don't currently offer it, then always contact us. We can give you some content taken directly from the community. You can then take it to your boss and be like, this is why we should be doing it. Hopefully it will help you get that over the line and make your jobs easier in the next 6, 12 months with your 150 hires. Obviously, offering this stuff is going to increase your chances, but here's a little breakdown of the percentage it will increase your chances by. So offering visa assistance, it's going to have 100% improvement. Offering remote, 50%, and then offering relocation is 50%. Now, relocation is kind of a funny one. People always go, oh, we can't afford relocation packages. It doesn't have to be throwing money and sending a lorry to their house to move them and to relocate them and to pay for their accommodation. It can be advice, and it can be having something in place to say, when you move here, here's a list of things that you should be doing, here's a list of locations that would be suitable for the office. That can be at its most basic if there isn't budget there. But it'll definitely improve your chances. Did you say 18 minutes?
Go for it.
I don't know if will this play. Let's just leave the video. It was it's a 3-minute video. It's of one of the developers from our community that basically found his job through Stack Overflow. He uses the website every day. You see him cycle to his office, you see him coding, and then his manager says, yeah, Stack Overflow's great. And I was just trying a small little plug at the end. Include it in the follow-up email, thank you.